Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to this webinar, A God Conscious Perimenopause. I'm so glad that you have decided to spend some time with me and learning about a God Conscious Perimenopause. And this is going to be a little bit unusual, I think, but let's get into it. Let me put myself there. Okay, so the agenda for today. We're just going to have a little intro about myself and Bloom Body and Soul Academy, as well as then going into the women's life cycle, pulling back a little bit so that we can put perimenopause into perspective, looking at the woman as a whole from birth to death, rather than just focusing on one aspect as if it's separate to the rest, which is not. We'll look at the 4 seasons of the women through that as well. And then perimenopause, what is perimenopause, and some holistic tools and solutions for you as well. So first of all, my name is Afsha and I'm the founder of Bloom Body and Soul Academy. I was a pharmacist for 30 years and now I really work only holistically. I also I'm a personal trainer, fully qualified. I don't do personal training so much anymore, but I still work in movement and exercise, and I specialize mainly in pelvic health, and that is all the exercise and everything you need for pelvic health. Freedom, pain-free, leak-free pelvis, and also that really affects your back and all your core muscles. So I really work in that now. I'm also a somatic womb practitioner. What does that mean? That means really challenging and coming to terms with our emotional body and the story of our lives through the womb cycle and through a lot of emotional work, emotional release or trauma release. We don't actually go into stories. It's not talking therapy. This is very body centric. And that's what I really enjoy doing. I use sound therapy through tuning fork vibration, and I use movement, I use fascia release for all my work, really. And and that all leads to womb healing, to be honest. And what do I do for you? I empower women with holistic and somatic tools. So I not only educate so that you become aware of what you can do, but also I provide the venue and I provide the classes and the courses for you to actually start to do the practical work as well. And I do that by reconnecting you to your body, because all of our bodies are unique and cookie cutter solutions don't really work. I go to the root origin cause of disease and pain, which is emotional and spiritual. But reconnecting to our bodies really helps us to, be able to see ourselves in a bigger perspective rather than just focusing on, parts of the body or hormones. I unlock freedom in the body through fascia release and through sound therapy and the emotional work, and really that helps with emotional and physical pain relief. And decolonizing the body, that is all about just trying to challenge the narratives that we've been born into and to really get rid of those false beliefs, those toxic cultural patterns, generational patterns, so that we can really thrive and we can connect to our fitra. Okay, so a God-centered perimenopause. When you bought this webinar, what did it bring up in your mind? What does it mean to you? So have a little think about that and maybe write it down. What is it that comes to mind when you think of a God-centered perimenopause? So You may be thinking about um, the Islamic influence on health, or what Islam says about perimenopause or the woman's body or menstrual cycle. But this isn't really what this webinar is about. And you can find that obviously with the relevant people, the scholars and the people who deal with the fiqh of menopause, which is all fine, but it's a very masculine, patriarchal way of looking at the woman. Um, what we are doing here is understanding our connection, our direct connection to Allah, which we have. That is what Allah tells us in the Quran, all over the Quran, that, we are directly connected to Allah as individuals. And how do we navigate our health with that underlying belief? So for me, I would say first things first. We have forgotten in the realm of health and well-being that we're multi-dimensional beings. We're not a physical body. We are a soul expressing physically. So whatever happens to us physically is actually a manifestation of something deeper. And secondly, we've kind of forgotten that what happens to us affects every single thing, including up to the earth in the cosmos. And what happens in the earth in the cosmos actually ripples down and affects us individually. And what has happened is in this society, the modern society, and I'm not really going to say Western society anymore because it is probably quite global now. In this society, this world that we live in, we are very individualized. We're very focused on individual health, well-being, even spirituality. But we've kind of lost touch, as this beautiful quote says, we've lost touch to the basic truth that what happens to ourselves happens in concentric circles to family, community, humanity, earth, cosmos. And that ensures the continuation of life. So everything is related. And once we start to embody that, then our projections change. Our view of the world changes, but also our view of our body changes completely. And that brings me on to the main ayah that transformed my view of my body as well. And this is a very famous ayah, of course, and it's often quoted. But I'd like you to focus in on the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he puts the two places of truth very close to each other. And that is the horizons and within themselves, so within ourselves. So the horizons could be seen as nature, as natural laws, as the cosmos, as the universe, as all the creation. And within ourselves is seen as our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, our desires, our ego, and also our ruh, our spirit, our akal, our qalb, and our body. So all the systems in our body as well. And excuse me, when you look in these two places, you will find truth. Obviously, if you are seeking truth, if you're seeking guidance, Allah will guide. So in that situation, when you look in these two places, there is truth. There is not truth in man-made books and opinions. These aren't truths. These are just opinions, always changeable, always changing, always disproven eventually or updated. But within ourselves and within the horizons is Allah's laws, and it's never changing. And of course, this ayah also talks about being a witness. Now, Allah is a witness over all things, but it brings us to attention to us that we are a witness over ourselves, and that the importance of radical acceptance, radical responsibility as well, and self-observing, because our choices have a huge impact on our health. And this ayah, once you embody it, it will change the way that you see perimenopause as well. Okay, so we are in this webinar, obviously in this workshop, we're going to look within ourselves. We're not going to look at the horizons. And I am going to be using the lens of traditional Chinese medicine, especially the 5-element theory, as well as some elements of Ayurvedic sciences and my studies on Unani Tib and the Islamic traditions as well. Now, why have I chosen those systems? Because remember, I have been immersed in the Western medical system for 30 years, so I understand how it works. Even if you're religious, it doesn't make any difference, because you are taught with the underlying tone that there's no soul or in the body and there's no God. So when you look at a liver or a kidney or a stomach, you're fragmenting it, and you are only physical or material based or mechanical based. Whereas all of these approaches are very conscious of a part of us that is not from this world. Okay, so that changes the science and it changes the approach to our bodies, and it makes it a holistic and God-conscious approach. And this image here actually on the screen is a high resolution image of the inside of a cell. So subhanAllah, it looks absolutely stunning, complicated hive of activity, like almost like a city in motion. And that is actually what our body is like. It's mind-blowingly complex. The more you delve into it, the more you realize that you cannot know what's going on. And to even think that, we know we scratch the surface is, it's probably arrogant of us. We cannot even imagine the complexity of this body. Okay, so as I said to you, we're going to pull out a little and put perimenopause in the context of our whole life from birth to death. Now, in the Chinese medical system, they believe that we go through life in 7-year cycles. Men actually go through life in 8-year cycles, women in 7. So in each 7-year cycle, there is a change, a shift in energy, a shift in consciousness, a growth in the soul level, a growth in the body, and so on. And learning about it really helps to place us where we are right now in context. So rather than like, oh, what's happening to me right now? Why is this happening? Once you zoom out and place yourself in context, it helps you to understand why things are happening to you. So we can also, when we learn about these cycles, we can also use our knowledge to work with these cycles and utilize the best approaches and lifestyle changes, the best, herbal formulas, and each phase then feel our best. So this is the birth to death little chart. Now, on the left side here, I have put the elements that align with those phases of our life. And the Chinese 5-element theory very much looks at okay, let's look at our ayah, the horizons, the creation, and links it to us and what's happening in our bodies and minds. So we have the wood, fire, earth, metal, and water phase. We also have this in Unani Tib in the form of the temperaments, where they also use the seasons and the elements, although they don't have metal, and Ayurvedic signs as well, where they also use the concept of the elements. Because remember, Allah made the elements, Allah made us. And so we can use the signs in each phase to understand ourselves better. I've also, on the left-hand side here, put the seasons, because as we saw in that first slide where we have the concentric circles, the seasons of our life and the seasons of our body, our menstrual cycles, also align to these different parts of our life as well. So everything is linking up, and we become part of a system, the natural system, rather than being these sort of like fragmented individuals. Now, some of you might not know about the inner seasons of the cycle. And if you're interested, you just Google it, or please do keep in touch and look out for workshops that I do. So we're going to park that because otherwise this will get really complicated. And we're just going to look at our life. So we are born 0 to 6 and 7 to 3. Those two blocks of cycles are all about the foundation, all about growth. A very rapid development and growth phase. And in these two blocks, the foundation for our physical and emotional resilience is laid. A robust reproductive system and a robust nervous system. And that's why our Prophet, peace be upon him, really loved children and nurtured them and was soft and gentle with them. And, there's so many stories and narrations that we hear about how he treated them. And this kindness and softness is how you develop the resilient nervous system. The next, and obviously the rite of passage that we go through is puberty. Okay. And the next system, the next 7 years is the fire phase. Okay. So the first phase is the child, the infant. Okay, so the young girl. The third phase here, 14 to 20, is known as the harmony phase. And this is a quick moving, exciting time of life. This is where the emphasis is establishing harmony in the body and a critical time for hormonal balance. So in this phase, we're really nurturing that soul and looking after the body through hormonal balance. And that would be looking at, a nourishing diet, resting and moving well, all the well-being stuff, but really helping the child engage with that. And the rite of passage is menarche. So you start your period at this point, but also you may become pregnant and postpartum, and those are rites of passage too. Then we go on to the fertility and balancing phase, which is also linked to the earth. And this is a very solid phase. We are really learning about our body. It's the earth phase, focuses on stability, fertility, and nurturing energy. And also learning how to balance the yin and the yang aspect of us, the feminine and the masculine, the receiving and the doing. So when we learn this balance, so for example, between resting and action, between giving and receiving, this is very important for us and our energy conservation, especially coming into perimenopause. And this is a critical time for that. As we go on, then we come to the clarity phase and the knowledge phase in our 30s and 40s. And most women would feel this is your peak season. You kind of know where you are, you're very grounded, you know what works for you, what doesn't work for you. So we really have gathered a lot of knowledge at this point. And it's linked with the metal phase. And it's where perimenopause starts. So at the age of 35 onwards, you will start to have a change in hormones. So it's natural, it's normal. And in this phase, we're very focused. This profound transformation of the body occurs in this phase. So it's very important for the body here. And we're very focused on consolidating energy and starting to focus inward. And also time to embrace the changes that are going to come up in menopause. So there's a lot of like transformation. It's a bit like many people will say it's like going through puberty backwards. But the nice thing is in this phase, you have all the wisdom that you've gathered, hopefully, inshallah. Okay, then after that phase, you have the wisdom phase. So that's the good news. As you come into menopause, between 49 and 55 years, most women will experience the end of their cycle. Then you are in a phase of deep transformation, wisdom, depth, and reflection. And it's all about nurturing the body, the mind, and the spirit. So for most of our lives, we're very outward focused as women because there's lots of things that we need to do and we need to nurture other humans. So this phase really allows us to come inward. It's about plenty of rest and really connecting with creative practices that bring you joy. It's a wonderful time where we really become the wise, respected women, the elders who share a lifetime of knowledge with the younger generations. And that's, as we come out of that 55 years onwards, our second spring. And that's where we really can tap into the playfulness again of our lives and not take things so seriously and not really care too much about what other people are saying or doing and focus on our own lives and enjoy life a little bit more, inshallah. Okay, so the 4 seasons of the woman. So we have the child, the young girl, who's from about 0 to 20 to about 13. And then the maiden, who's the young woman who's having her period, and she's in her spring season. Okay, she's playful and wanting to learn and wanting to blossom. And then from her maidenhood, she becomes a mother. And that mother phase, whether you become a mother of children or not, we become nurturers. We are the nurturers of others. And that's our mother phase. And that's linked to the earth. So you have, I think I've forgotten something. Yeah, maiden. Enchantress is the fire phase. That's the phase where we are really, in our peak sexuality usually, and wanting to attract our partners and become pregnant. Then we have the mother phase where we are mothering children or other humans or projects. And then we go into our autumn phase where we are beginning to slow down in the body. And then that's when we come into our wise women phase. Okay, so these are kind of like seasons of our life. And they're very different. Each season is marked by a different energy, a different learning, a different soul, a soul connection. It all changes with these cycles. So if we learn to understand this, then we can really have a much better experience of perimenopause. And as you can see, perimenopause is also aligned with autumn, which is the third week of our cycle in our cycle, our menstrual cycle. So let's just go through that. So we are designed to move from one cycle to the next very easily. From puberty to menopause, we come full circle, closing the feminine loop to live 1/3 of our lives in wisdom and power. This process does not need to be medically managed or surgically expedited. And outside influences can and often do affect our ability to make smooth transitions. So just remembering that, just changing your mindset and starting to embody that belief changes your symptoms, because your symptoms are based on beliefs. Yes, that's another workshop in itself. Okay, so let's look here. Menopause is a physical, emotional, and spiritual journey. And what we are focused in this world is it's very physical. We're looking at the material, we're looking at the symptoms, we're looking at the solutions being very material. And in fact, it's not. It's more emotional and spiritual than physical. Perimenopause aligns with the autumn season of our life. Okay? And it also aligns with the inner autumn of our menstrual cycle. So these are the links, the cycles that are occurring, the relationships that we as women are in. And this is the same as our luteal phase, or week 3 of your cycle, the premenstrual cycle. The premenstrual phase. Okay, everybody knows about PMS. This is the season of the nuffs, all right? Our ego self is dominant. We get triggered really easily. Things that were not so bad in our summer, in our ovulation, we just can't stand anymore in week 3. Okay, so we're like a woman in 4, 4 women in 1, you could say. We lose patience, we get more emotional, we have a low tolerance for stress physiologically, and we're not as emotionally resilient or physically resilient. This is physiological. These are actually physiological changes in our body. In this stage also, our estrogen and progesterone are coming down. So they're coming down, and we're getting a little taster of what perimenopause is going to feel like. It's a time of life where our soul is actually trying to call out and say, look, you know, every single month of the year, you've got this week to do your nafs work, your taskia. And if you haven't done it, then I'm calling out to you now. It's time. I'm going to make you do it. And I'm going to force you to stop by giving you a migraine. I'm going to force you to stop by giving you joint aches and pains. And you're going to have to stop, and you're going to have to look at some things that you're doing that's not helpful for yourself. And the root cause of all your behavior is emotional, it is beliefs. So eventually that's where you have to look. The only way the body can talk to us is through symptoms. And remember what Allah said, within us is truth. And so symptoms are basically our signs, they are ayah, that there's a disconnection between truth and what we are doing and saying and believing. This disconnection is there, and our body is trying to alert us to it. What normally arises is things that happen in childhood or even pre-birth. So in the uterus, things that you've picked up about your family, even your mother's childhood, your grandmother's childhood, and the societies they lived in. All of these stories are in our cells. They are in our DNA. So we are not just a product of now. We are a product of many generations. And our perimenopause symptoms will be reflective of what our soul needs in our unique journey. And that's why some things work for one woman but don't work for the other, and the symptoms are the same. But the root cause will be different because this is a spiritual journey that we're on. So this phase is really about self-reflection and a time of release and transformation. And releasing things and transforming is always scary, and it is painful. And it's not meant to be an easy journey, although some women do have an easy journey. And again, that's their soul journey. And maybe they have worked on all their baggage all their life, and maybe they didn't have too much baggage. So it really is about your own individual journey. And here, what I want you to do is have a little break and write down a couple of things. One, what was your experience like of starting your period? So basically your introduction into womanhood. Have a think back and, was it positive or negative? Did you have support or not? Was it shameful and hidden? Was it talked about a lot? Were you made to feel special, or was it kind of hidden under the carpet? If you just have a think about that and write that down. And then also, what is your third week of your cycle like, your luteal phase, your inner autumn? What are your symptoms like? What do you usually experience? And that will give you an idea of the kind of things that are coming up for you in perimenopause. And it will also help you to see how you see yourself as a woman, because your introduction to your period is very much linked to your feminine energy and how you see yourself as a woman. So let's do that. Have a little break and let's do that now. Okay, so in my experience, there's a lot of negative stuff that people come up with here. And I guess what that will help you do is realize that there is a very big gap between your feeling of comfort in being a woman and what you really truly believe, which is that, maybe you hate being a woman, you hate that aspect of you, you really feel uncomfortable, you feel ashamed. So all of these beliefs have to be tackled. Okay, so let's carry on. What is perimenopause? So it's the time between our reproductive years, our mother, and our eldership, our wise woman years. So between those two life periods, we have a section called perimenopause. Now, not all women experience perimenopause. Some women just go straight through without really realizing it, and they've hit menopause and have a couple of years or a few months of one or two symptoms and they're done. But we are all very individual, and there's so many factors that come into how you experience perimenopause. So we can start anywhere between the age of 35 to about 55. At 35, the reduction in your hormones will start very gently and naturally. Okay, so perimenopause can last 8 to 10 years, or it could last a year. It's a natural decline, okay, and it starts gently and naturally. So you might find in the first 5 or 6 years that you're just feeling a little bit different, or your periods are a little bit different. Usually doesn't affect the periods till a bit later, but your mood is shifting a little. There's a lot of factors that go on into how we experience perimenopause. It could be like the environment that you're living in, the stress that you have on you emotionally, physically, financially, the toxins in the environment, your diet, your health, fitness levels. Although many times I've seen in my own experience as well that you can be exceptionally fit and have a very difficult time in perimenopause. So It's not really just about the physical aspect. Each woman's journey is completely unique, and that's what we have to remember. And if it is, that means that what works to help with symptoms is going to be very different for different people. Okay. So basically, when it comes to looking at the lifestyle, the life period from birth to death of a woman, the time of perimenopause are these two blocks, 35 to 41 and 42 to 48. That's the time of clarity and knowledge phase. Yeah, so you begin rejuvenating actually. Instead of thinking of a decline, think of it as a rejuvenation of the soul, because we are souls. And then a preparation for that next phase where you emerge as the butterfly. Okay, so there are a huge range of symptoms in menopause. And obviously, many are natural, like, for example, loss of irregular periods. That's a natural symptom because your hormones are declining. So it's very normal for you to start having less periods or lighter periods. But there is also a huge variation in experiencing those symptoms, for example, geographical locations. So, for example, people in China and Japan have very few of these symptoms. They have hot flushes and joint pain, osteoporosis, and I think so dryness. But the severity and the range of symptoms, very few, apart from Chinese women in cities who are, executives and so on. So doing the same kind of stuff that we do here. So that tells you a lot about what the symptoms are all about, really. So if we know that all around the world, women experience menopause differently, even although it's exactly the same thing, as in the hormones are declining until we have zero estrogen and zero ability to ovulate, then that is telling you something very important. It is not the hormonal decline that is causing the severity of symptoms, but it's the state of your body. And I'm going to actually say the mind, body, spirit, that one thing. Okay. It's the state of your body when you approach menopause that is causing the symptoms. So instead of like jumping on this bandwagon that we're on just now, which is dangerous, where you're like, oh my God, I've got like brain fog, it's perimenopause. Just think, there's many times in your life that you can have brain fog when you're really stressed. When, say, someone close has died, or you're looking after a very ill person, you can have a lot of brain fog because you're so stressed. Maybe you're not drinking enough water. Maybe you're thinking too much and worrying too much about the future. So many of these symptoms are more about your mind, body, spirit rather than just hormones. So think first about your self-care practices. What could you do that might help? So, for example, if you have headaches, migraines, difficulty concentrating, and brain fog, could you perhaps drink more water? Get down on the foam roller, and massage your neck, shoulders, and head a lot more so that you can get oxygen to the area. Could you massage your scalp? Could you start looking at your diet and saying, am I nourishing myself? Am I eating enough healthy fats? If you're getting allergies and itchy skin, you could look at what it is in your environment that might be causing you to be hypersensitive. So where before perimenopause, using bleach and chemical cleaning products was fine. Maybe now, because your hormones are declining, your estrogen is no longer buffering your stress response. Maybe now you have to give those up. Maybe before perimenopause, you could dye your hair and wear, perfumes. Maybe now, because your body is saying, I'm really oversensitive, I'm getting hives, I'm itchy, you might have to just get rid of everything and go proper au natural, So there are so many things that we could really help ourselves with, but first before coming on to hormone therapy or medication. Because if you go to a medical doctor, you will get the usual range of stuff. You'll get an antidepressant, maybe. You might get a sleeping tablet for insomnia. You might get HRT. And so all of those things will probably help for a short period or for time, but they're not dealing with the actual cause of the symptoms, but they help get you through. And if that's what you need, then that's what you need. Okay, so I am going to talk about something quite controversial here, perhaps, or not controversial, thought-provoking. So am I against HRT? For me, yes. For others, no. Okay. But I want to just provoke you to think a little differently about what HRT is. So, what is menopause? Menopause is a gentle and natural decline of hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Now, if you are taking HRT, are you going through menopause? That's a question to ask, because all you're doing is replacing with synthetic hormones, a kind of artificial synthetic version of the hormones that Allah is reducing in your body. Secondly, what's the impact of HRT on the environment? Remember, we're supposed to be Khalifa, custodians of the earth. We are supposed to be looking after this earth. We are supposed to be conscious and mindful and which ayah is it? Tread gently on the earth. Believers tread gently on the earth. I've forgotten which ayah it is. Maybe you could look it up. So are we treading gently on the earth? Who is making these products and what are their intentions? Where do they get rid of all their waste from the manufacture? What happens when we rip the patches off, that plastic stuff? Where does it go and what does it do to the environment? What happens of the impact of these fake or artificial hormones in the water that we drink, to other animals and to other humans? For example, men who are developing breasts now and hormones in the water are part of that. And what about the impact on your soul? Have you thought about that? Now, if symptoms are your body's language and they're trying to alert you to a discrepancy between truth and falsehood, that's what symptoms kind of do, then how will you ever find the truth of your body and your soul and your psyche if you mask and shut the symptoms up? Secondly, lastly, if Allah has decreed that we go through this transition, who are we serving by replacing hormones that are supposed to decline? These are difficult questions, but for me, these were very important questions and they helped me decide on the route that I wanted to take. Now, obviously, if a woman is taking HRT and she's on antidepressants and whatever, all the big bundle, and I used to give that out by my own hands, for which I have sought forgiveness, but if a woman does want that and doesn't need it, you cannot change your circumstances. And also, you choose not to. And you may be so physically depleted that you cannot even begin to start doing any lifestyle changes. Then, of course, these patches and medication are there for you to use. But always remember that it's an artificial illusion of stability, because underneath, your body is still going through menopause. Okay, underneath it all, it's just that you're not experiencing it. And that means that when you do decide to come off the HRT, there will be a worsening of symptoms because you haven't experienced the decline. And neither have you dealt with the deeper aspect of menopause, which is the self-reflection, self-observation, the shadow work, the inner child work, the repairing, and the getting rid of false beliefs. Because you've masked it, usually you just get on and carry on with the life that you've always done. And menopause is not about that. It's about changing your life. So these are very important considerations for us as Muslims, because I feel that menopause is like a gift to a woman who has been so outwardly focused. You know, she has to find a man, she has to get pregnant, she has to look after all the children and the men and the parents around her. She has to nurture people, she has to prepare food, she has to really keep the world going. So she's very dunya focused, and menopause allows the transition inwards. And so it's very important for us as humans that if we do take HRT, that we remain very conscious that we do the inner work. This is a big slide with lots of words in it. But now coming on towards the solutions and the tools that we can use to help ourselves, I just want to show you the Chinese way of looking at some of these symptoms, because in the Western medical model, say for example, you get vaginal dryness, you will immediately be given an estrogel. So local estrogen to make you feel more comfortable down there, and it will work. Okay. If you have, for example, mood changes, you will be given an antidepressant, and that will sometimes make your mood better. If you have osteoporosis, you'll be given calcium tablets and vitamin D and so on, and various other medication. And I want you to look at how the Chinese deal with it. What they do is they look at the organs and the systems of the body and the patterns of the body. That's how Allah works. That's what He gave us. And He gave us patterns in our body and energy in our body, yin and yang. So it's a very different system. And when you start to understand it like that, your experience of your symptoms changes and how you help yourself changes. You don't have to remember any of this. And, this is all what a medical professional will use in their treatment of your perimenopause if you did go to a Chinese medical practitioner. So what can we do ourselves to help ourselves if we're not going to go down the hormone route? And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to give you expertise about not going down the hormonal route. And so what we do is we support our organs and our endocrine system, our glands. We support them first. So as you can see, some beautiful images of the liver, the small intestine, and the gallbladder. So the Bloom Body and Soul Academy approach is one of always looking at the body in these 3 layers. We have more layers, but this is a nice, simple way to look at it. Physical approach, emotional approach, and spiritual approach. These have to be done side by side because the physical symptoms are literally a manifestation of the other 2 bodies, the emotional body and the spiritual body. Okay, so again, this I'm just gonna have a drink. This slide, again, lots of words and stuff, but to be honest, I don't think that you don't know all of this. The physical stuff is very well known now because it's all over the internet. Like you can go on Instagram and YouTube and learn literally 100 different ways of doing all of this. But I like to think of the physical aspect as you are what you drink and eat, think and excrete. And it's a nice way to remember it. Okay. So let's start with something really simple, and that's water or hydration. If you are dehydrated, your estrogen is going to be sucked back into the body, the estrogen that's meant to be going out of the body. You might think that's great, but it's not, because your estrogen is meant to be broken down and eliminated from your body regularly. But if you're dehydrated, the water is sucked back up from your large intestines where your poo is made. And with that comes the hormones and other chemicals. And then you become estrogen, you could say dominant. It's kind of a buzzword, but I'm not sure it's a great explanation. But your estrogen, instead of leaving your body, will come back in. And that makes you more likely to suffer from things like fibroids and cysts and heavy periods and tender breasts. And so, if you think about it, a lot of people suffer from that. So, first thing that you can do easily is to look at your hydration levels. And our pee is meant to be a sort of a nice light yellow color. And we're meant to go about every 3 to 4 hours to the loo. And so, if you do that and are looking at your wee, always look at your wee, check the color of it, and then you can adjust your hydration levels. I'm not going to say drink 8 glasses a day or 2 liters a day of water. I don't believe that in that system. I believe that you can understand how much water you need by looking at how often you go to the loo and what color your pee is. Also, remember you can eat your water through hydrating foods. All fruits and vegetables are hydrating, but particularly cucumber, apples, watermelons, things like that. With regards to water, obviously we live in big cities now, so you want to filter your water. You can use electrolytes, even if it's just a grain of Celtic salt or Himalayan salt, just under the tongue, and then drinking the water. Okay, so with foods, again, nothing new here by now. I think everybody understands that processed foods are the most inflammatory type of foods, and reducing those, getting rid of those, will certainly help your symptoms. Usually, by the time you get to perimenopause, your stress bucket is full to the top and it's overflowing. So, whereas before you used to be able to eat bread, it might be causing gut problems, diarrhea, pain, dairy as well. It might be, that you can't tolerate it anymore. And sugar, of course, excess sugar, refined sugar, that is. You may have to cut these 3 out. These are usually the most irritant or the most stressful on the body. So even if it's just cutting out for a short period of time, like a few months or a year, then you might be able to get back onto it. Because we get so hot, then eating lots of spicy food, you might have to let go of that for a little while. Perimenopause is about letting go. So the things that we got used to, the things that worked before, no longer are serving us. And we have to understand, can we surrender to that? Can we accept that? And that's usually where the fight is. So with every meal you make, just look at it and say, is this going to nourish me? Is it going to make me the best version of myself? And is this diet balanced with my movement and lifestyle? So if you're moving all day, if you're exercising a few times a week, If you're, really active, then you can probably afford to have more carbs and specific types of food. But if you're very still and sedentary, then maybe it's time to think about reducing your carbohydrate, because that's basically pure energy. So if you're not moving so much, you don't need pure energy. You can get it from low carbohydrate products like foods, like fruits, and like vegetables. And of course, think of the rainbow colors of the veg. You can get your energy through fats like ghee, coconut oil, olive oil, and butter. And you can get your energy source through protein as well. So the protein is for your muscular development. You'll feel your muscles not as strong as you come into menopause. So eating protein, but not excessive, is important. And often women are a little bit depleted in the protein. So have a look at that. Okay, what about excrete? Our routes of elimination are exceptionally important in perimenopause. Just think of autumn and things shedding and you're letting go, things falling off, things, decomposing. That's also with us. So our detoxification of the body, our shedding is very important. So you would work on all your elimination pathways, most importantly, your liver. And so how do you do that? Your liver needs to be unburdened and detoxified. Regular movement. So not once a week at an exercise class or a gym. It's regular movement, walking every day. Strength training, because you are building the muscles that will be the sink, the absorption of all the glucose, the excess glucose. Rebounding is very good for the lymphatic system, which is your waste drainage system. So when you do rebounding on a trampoline or skipping, if your knees and ankles are strong enough, then it helps to get the lymphatic system moving and helps with a nice big poo. Yes, I say all these kind of things because they're important. They're part of us. Fascia work. Working on the fascia is the most amazing thing in the world. It really creates space in the body when you work through trigger release, foam rolling, or block therapy, which I do in all my courses and all my work if you're coming to me to work individually. Deep breathing is, obviously breath is a route of elimination. Through breath, we get rid of fat. So the fat that's broken down, we get rid of some of the products of that breakdown through our breath. So learning how to breathe, breathing deeply, massages the organs, stimulates the lymphatic system and gets things going. For your liver especially, castor oil packs are great and stimulate movement and elimination. You can go for enemas if you want to as well, if you have a backlog. Self-massage is very important. That's fascia work as well to get things moving. So abdominal massage. And then something called hormesis, which is stressing your body a little. The body actually likes that. It doesn't like comfort. Comfort is probably the cause of a lot of our problems. So sauna and a steam room really helps you sweat, and that's a good method of excreting as well. Okay, what about the emotional body? So first of all is your mindset. What do you believe in? If you believe your body's broken, if you believe that your symptoms means that things are not right in your body and that your body is failing, if those are your beliefs, which let me tell you now, unless you've worked on yourself, they are your beliefs, because that is the program that's been instilled into us since we were in school, and then in colleges and universities, and then if we've got any medical training, throughout our medical training. So we change that belief to understanding that every single thing our body does is very wise, and that our body has an innate ability to self-heal. That's how it's designed. So working on those beliefs, understanding your triggers. What triggers you? Your triggers are your teachers. Again, so instead of sort of looking out at the world and blaming the world, is actually to understand what reaction does it cause within your psyche and your soul. And then that will give you a clue as to what wounds you are holding. So yeah, working on your emotional wounds, which always come from the childhood and maybe pre-childhood. And so you can do that through the body rather than through talking therapy. But there's all different modalities available. Another way to work on the emotional body is for making time and creating stillness. This is probably one of the most difficult things for the Asian woman who's always busy doing everything for everyone and, you know, has to really put up with a lot. So being still, making time, very important for you to do the inner work, to do the taskia. Obviously, like educating and empowering yourself. When you learn about your nervous system and how you react to things and why you're reacting the way you are, then you can make changes, because we are always able to change. So this aspect of perimenopause is probably the most important part, because through the physical aspect, you will change things on the surface level, right? But through the emotional changes, you're changing from inside to out. What about the spiritual? And of course, spiritual, you're going to think, okay, I'm going to do my prayers, my dhikr, I've got to say this prayer, that dhikr, this many number of times, and so on. And yes, I'm assuming that all of that is covered and that you can, you're already doing that. You're already doing your salah. You're already reading Quran. You're already doing your dhikr. Okay, so this is going beyond to our direct connection with Allah, that has got nothing to do with anything physical that we do, that is only from within. So spiritual work, working on the diseases of the heart, which is the same as the emotional work, really. Self-reflection, self-observation, and self-remembering. These are all tools that you can use to help navigate this spiritual work, taskia. Breath connection, everything comes from the breath. And remember, Allah, it has breathed into us as humanity. So the breath is from Allah and it carries our life force energy. So when you connect to the breath, you are starting to like open your awareness and come into do the work. Nervous system connection. Our nervous system is our survival center, where our ego attachments lie, our fears, and these are basically our hidden idols. So how we respond to things, how we have learned to survive, all of this has been imprinted in us as young children and through our generational sort of patterns or lineage, but also through society and the narratives that we pick up. It also is where we connect to joy and pleasure. And, you know, this is also quite controversial, I would say, in Muslim and Asian societies, about our ability to be happy and enjoy pleasurable things. Okay, you wouldn't probably think that pelvic work and womb work is spiritual, but it's deeply spiritual because, again, we're connecting with something that Allah made, and we're looking at the patterns within us. And those are the patterns that Allah instills, and we're trying to get back to the fitra and get rid of all our nonsense. So a lot of our traumas are kind of like stored in the womb and the pelvic center. This is our root system, our root chakra, as they say in the yogic system, our sacral chakra, our solar plexus. This whole area is a hive of activity, and it is the playground of shaitan, because here lies our desires, our lust, our greed, our fears, our sense of self. And so if you really work in this area of your body, you will start to really balance your sense of connection to self, creation, and Allah. You'll also learn about your patterns, and everything's about pattern recognition in this world. So you're really working on deep, deep patterns that are instilled within you. So that's all the spiritual work that we often don't think of. And of course, this can be connected to the ritual of Islam, the ritualistic work. So as you're doing your dhikr, you can do a breath connection. As you're doing your pelvic work, you can do dhikr. You can do, Allah's names as you're connecting to your womb. So there's a lots of overlap, but sometimes what happens is we go too much into the physical aspect, and we're perfecting this ritualistic prayer, and we forget about our actual deep connection to Allah. So some other tools are the mindset shift, as we said, to see perimenopause as a golden opportunity. Challenge current narratives and cultural beliefs. We are told time and time again in the Quran not to follow our forefathers, not to follow them, not to follow them. Okay, so challenge your belief systems, your cultural belief systems, and the patterns that are within you. Now, one of the most important tools is to build support. Who is around you that you can lean on, and lean on it. Delegate to your children, delegate to your husband. Have those days where you just cannot get up, then just don't get up. Okay, inshallah, by taking the rest, you will feel better. But if you keep pushing through like you have all your life, it will be very difficult on your body. Your body is screaming for rest. So you need support to help you with that. And that could also be a therapist. And I would always say, try and connect with someone who's gone through it, not with very young therapists. They don't have a clue. Okay. Some more tools. One of the things that we don't think about is the effect of light on the body. So the circadian rhythm, we're usually out of sync throughout our whole life. So now let's try and really sync with Allah's rhythm. Okay, Allah has a rhythm. It's in the nature. So let's sync with it, and let's get closer to Allah by that way. Morning light, afternoon and evening sunlight are very important. So just getting out for 10-15 minutes at those times if you can't be out for more. And softening the light at night, avoiding excess blue light, and having full darkness at night. Now, what this does is our body has been designed to work with light and the full spectrum light cycle. So what it does is it helps optimize our body's function, which no human can do, no tablet can do, not even a herb can do. Okay, so It's probably one of the most important tools you can use. And here are just some. Now, there's a lot of things available herbally, but I'm just going to share a few things. Sage is like a superhero for hot flushes, and this has been proven scientifically as well. So make sage teas, or mix sage herb with some other herbs if you don't like the taste. Rosemary is known as the protector of the liver and the brain. Now, we get a lot of brain symptoms in perimenopause and menopause because, like I said, our soul is asking us to let go. So our brain almost gets pruned, and things leave our brain that we don't need anymore. So our memory changes, and it's almost like it's being refined down to what we really need to survive this next few years, and to give the wisdom without the fear. So to help with those symptoms, rosemary tea is lovely. And again, fennel has got very gentle estrogenic properties. So fennel teas, in fact, there's a Ayurvedic formula called CCFT: coriander, cumin, and fennel. And you can just put a teaspoon of each, boil it up, put it in a flask, strain it, put it in a flask, and then just sip that tea whenever you get thirsty. You can also use fennel seed as an oil and use it vaginally, and that helps with the dryness and the discomfort. And like supplements, okay, supplements are kind of becoming like the new pharmaceuticals, and it's a very confusing landscape. But if we take too many supplements, or if we're not addressing root cause, it can strain the body, because just think the liver has to deal with it anyway, has to process it. So we have to be careful with the amount of supplements we take. But if you're going to look at supplements, vitamin B, all the Bs, magnesium, perhaps vitamin C, depending on whether it irritates the bladder. So you have to really look at those carefully, but they are good ones to think about. You can also take magnesium through an oil or through Epsom foot soaks if you don't want to take it orally. Another aid is womb steaming, because by the time we get to this age, in fact, when we're very young, we have deep pelvic tension. And so this really helps with relaxation. You can also put herbs in your steam, like mugwort, for example, and it really relaxes the area locally, but it also will come into the bloodstream. Okay, so we're at the end now. And this is just a quote from Dr. Christiane Northrup, who was a gynecologist of many, many years. I think she's in her 70s now. And she kind of moved away from the medical mainstream and became quite holistic. And she's a good source. She's got many books available, so do look her up. So at midlife, a woman looks back and ponders where she has been and how far she has come. Now is the time she grieves the loss of any unrealized dreams she may have had when she was young, and she prepares the soil for the next stage of her life. Depending on the degree of perceived success in life, she may find herself in a crisis that is not so much physiological and developmental. How she negotiates this crisis will affect her health on all levels as she goes through menopause. Again, this is a beautiful way to look at it, because it's linking us to our youth and our life. It's not just a transition that happens on its own. It's linked to our whole life, plus, the cosmos, the earth, humanity, family, community, all of those. So we're linking in all different directions, and we're not just this fragmented individual. So what can you do next step? What can I offer you? Well, I offer many courses, but most important is that I'm offering you the time and the space to make these changes. When you come to my classes in the cabin or one-to-ones, this is your 1 hour of peace. And it's like a sanctuary for body connection and somatic awareness, because this kind of work takes a lot of time. It's also a learning hub of feminine wisdom. All the work that I do covers the 3 layers of the body, so I don't just work physically, I work emotionally and spiritually, and definitely with a connection to Allah. That's what I'm here for now, and that is my mission and my passion. Also, one-to-one treatments for deeper healing and for women who really are ready to make changes, radical acceptance, radical responsibility. And we just nurture and help you through it. So these are the different ways that I can help you. And I do have a holistic pelvic health course coming up in November, or I've always got them coming up. It's a 4-week course, online or in person, and it's a great way to start connecting with your body. We do all the sort of the breath work, how to breathe, posture, how to align your body better so that there's less strain on the pelvic floors and your back and so on. We do fascia work, which is really amazing. It helps you to get in touch with the tension that's in your body and understand why and where you're holding all of this tension and how to release it. And it really helps you to just have really heal those pelvic symptoms. So if you're leaking or you have pelvic pain, pain on sex, prolapse, all of these symptoms, even DR, so for the younger women or even older women, diastasis recti, chronic back pain, chronic pelvic pain, even things like frozen shoulder and plantar fasciitis, all related kind of. It all helps with those symptoms. So if you're interested, get in touch with me. And of course, finally, thank you so much for choosing Bloom, Body and Soul Academy. That's my email address there, and I'm on Instagram as well. And you are very welcome to contact me if you're interested in one-to-one work, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. And yeah, look after your perimenopausal bodies. Take care.